By the time Eric Coffie launched his YouTube channel in 2016, he was already one of the most successful federal government contractors in the US and employed an entire team that specialized in erecting steel buildings. The YouTube channel came out of his frustration of having to repeat the same advice over and over again to those wanting to break into the industry. He figured he could just record some video explainers and send them to people. But the success of the channel led to him expanding into podcasts, and then before he knew it, Eric was operating an entire media company that spanned across video, podcasts, online courses, coaching, events, and even a paid community. In a recent interview, Eric explained how he found an audience by going extremely niche and why he wants to shut down most of his media revenue streams so he can regrow his contracting business. Hello, I'm Simon Owens, and this is The Business of Content, the show about how publishers create, distribute, and monetize their digital content. If you want to listen to an audio version of this show, subscribe to The Business of Content wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're a longtime fan of this show, you're probably aware that it's not monetized with ads. I'm entirely reliant on paid subscriptions to my Substack newsletter to fund this content. Subscribers get access to a deep archive of interviews with the world's most successful media entrepreneurs. They also get to book a half-hour introductory Zoom call with me. Go to simonowens.substack.com. That's simonowens.substack.com. Or just Google the word Simon Owens and newsletter. Okay, let's jump into the interview. Hey Eric, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Simon. I appreciate you having me here today.
So I am super excited to have you on. You have this amazing entrepreneurial journey from, working briefly in real estate to learning the procurement process for government contracts and government construction, to then taking that arcane knowledge and communicating it in like a podcast and a YouTube channel, and then turning that into its own business where it's selling courses and doing conferences. So it's just this incredible journey that you've been on. I guess if we wanted to kind of trace it to its roots, would we go back to what, like 2007, 2008? Is that when you...
Yeah, 2007, 2008. That's when I got started, when the real estate market basically bottomed out.
Yeah, so you were trying to get a foothold in the real estate market. The Great Recession happens, the housing market gets out. So how did you come up with the idea from leapfrogging from that into construction, which you had no background in, right?
Exactly, correct. Yeah, I had no background. Yeah. So interesting enough, I was from South Florida and Miami, and a lot of the real estate market crash hit there. That was the base for it, right? But I had already, as a realtor, and also I had done some real estate investments, I had a couple of people that worked for me that were contractors, and they were the ones that told me about government contracting.
Yeah, and so to be clear, so they were contractors that were for private real estate type of things.
Yeah. Just an AC guy, like a regular call your AC breaks and he fixes it. He was just a regular AC guy, electrical guy that, to be honest with you, it's funny because we're all still good friends to this day, but I mean, he was unlicensed, and so he was working out of the back of his van, and but he had a good price, and so I was like, hey man, I'm using this guy, I could save $1,000 here, $1,000 there, but he was like, hey man, you ever heard about government contracts? And so he introduced me to one of his friends that knew all about it.
And so by government contracts, you're specifically talking about the federal government listing on some kind of website specific things that needed to be built on behalf for the federal government, correct?
Exactly.
Buildings?
Yeah.
What were they building, basically?
So, the first thing I always tell people is just, if you want to know, get a roundabout idea, watch the movie War Dogs. That'll give you a great idea of what we're talking about. But yeah, so the government has a website with all of these listings of things that they need done, right? Whether it's they want to buy protein shakes, or they want to buy football equipment, or they want something built for them. And then you go on the website, and then if you can do it, you submit your price and tell them what is it that you can do it and how much it's going to cost, and then the government decides to accept you or not accept your price.
And what was the specialty that you kind of zeroed in on? What kind of contracts were you bidding on?
So in the beginning, I didn't have a specialty. I was working with two companies that had specialties. So in the beginning, I worked with an air conditioner company, that was their specialty, and I worked with a painting company, and that was their specialty. So that's how I got into construction, because through those firms that were already established vendors, not for the government, just in commercial, they did schools, they did residential homes, but they were, they had AC mechanics on staff. I said, well, let's use your team. I will read the requests. I will look at the responses. I will put the whole thing together, and then I'll submit it, and then we'll use your team to actually do the work. So I started off with air conditioner and painting.
And so was your value add, like you were the one who was willing to like do the work to figure out how to get these government why couldn't they do these themselves?
So that's a great question. So what I've learned, Simon, in the real world, okay, not this fantasy world that people live in the real world, we all have our own skill set. I went to college. I was an engineer. The government's paperwork is this thick. The guy that fixes their air conditioner is not the same guy that sits in front of a computer and reads the proposal. So they, even though they were aware of it, they didn't have the ability or the desire. Like, I hate accounting. They didn't have the ability, desire to pull down these 100-page RFP proposals and then read them and then write back to the government.
And so what was your learning curve like in terms of figuring out what kind of patois that the government likes for you to use, or the different nuances that make it more likely to get to win the contract? Like, how did you learn that stuff? Was it just trial and error?
It was a lot of trial and error, but I will say this: the biggest part is, believe it or not, everyone is not bidding on every opportunity.
Yeah. And I think this kind of talked about that in that movie War Dogs that you mentioned, is like nobody's got like there's so many of these contracts, and a lot of people just don't even really bid for them or bid for them competitively. So just it's like a numbers game, right?
It's very well a numbers game at the very beginning, right? But I mean, there are some things that you can do, and we could talk about this, to be more strategic, to get yourself a better foothold, to increase your probabilities. But in the beginning, I encourage people just to try. I mean, if you try and respond, the good thing about the government is, because it is a public entity, a public body, by simply trying and responding, Simon, they'll tell you what you did wrong. So, I mean, think about that. They're going to tell you, hey, this is where you messed up, so that the next time, don't do these 10 things.
And so the winner of the contract would be you, and then they would be subcontracted under you?
No, so I actually used them, and I did all the paperwork under their names. And so I just filled it out and filled out the documentation. I used their names. And the reason why I did that was so that we could be more competitive, because they did have 10 years in business, they had employees, they had payroll, they had financials. So that brought special capabilities against other people that gave us an advantage.
And then you just negotiated like a predetermined fee that you would take on top of that.
Yeah, I negotiated a fee before we started, and I said, hey guys, look, and again, mind you, Simon, at this time in my life, I had a lot more time than I had money. So it's very easy to say, okay, so if I go after this opportunity and I win it, you guys keep 75%, I'll keep 25%. And they're like, okay.
And so you start winning some of these contracts. And to be clear, like you said, you didn't have a background in like construction or any of these things. Did you have to like learn any of that stuff, or was it really not even necessary to really understand the nuances of like air conditioning installment and stuff like that?
I did not have to learn it, because the truth is, the government, I dealt with procurement people, meaning I dealt with the government's people who were the buyers. And I was sort of the liaison between the actual technicians, right, and the buyer. On the government side, the government is so big that the buyers are specifically, they know about the contract, the agreement, not about the technical side of the work. So basically I was like the contract person for my side, and then I dealt with the contracts person for the government side. In terms of the technical stuff, that was a separate meeting between the engineers and our technical people on our side. So I never had to get into that outside of, is this in scope or out of scope?
And you mainly stuck with the federal government. Are there similar ways of working with state governments or local governments? Or
absolutely, yes, absolutely. And and by the way, I tried all three bodies of government. So I tried working with the local cities, right? Miami-Dade County, the city of Miami, and then I tried working with the state, like state of Florida. But I always came back to the federal government because, and a lot of people don't know this, right? If you look at when there's a natural disaster in the United States, okay, hurricane, tornado, flash floods, wildfires, when you look at natural disasters, in the United States, every city, every state that has a natural disaster, they declare an emergency. Okay? Maybe you've heard of this, Simon. Say, hey, this is a natural disaster. We're declaring this emergency area. The reason why they do this is so they can get federal funds to support their city, their state for disaster relief. Now, what does that mean? That means that they don't have the money to fix these things in their current budgets because states and local governments have to have a balanced budget. So if anything goes wrong, it's outside of the budget and outside of their tax dollar base. So what does that mean? That means that you can be subject to not be paid. I learned that the hard way.
So like that you could fulfill a contract for the state and it's not backstopped by any kind of guarantee versus the federal government will always pay its bills.
They'll print the money. They print money.
And was it federal contracts that were mainly based in for Florida projects, or were you?
No, I went all over. I've been all over the country. In fact, you've got now we're looking at projects in Guam as well. So Guam is out there way over by Japan, and so Australia, and so we're looking at projects there. We've done projects up in Maine. I've done projects all over the entire country. I've even looked at projects in South America and Central America. Remember, everywhere there's a military base or military presence, that's a federal contract.
And do you ever visit these sites personally, or is it all remote?
Yes, I do visit some of them personally. In fact, I visit a lot of them personally, and I encourage people who I teach and coach and train as well, because those are some of the things that set you apart from other people. You don't have to, it's not required, but if you want to continue to develop a relationship that can be long lasting, that's one of those things that sets you apart, is meeting the people, letting them know that you care about the project, letting them know it's not just any project to you, right? You're not one of 1,000, and that you really want to support them and the mission of these particular organizations, because they have their missions. And so you came out here personally to be with them to make sure that it got done right.
And then, so how did you expand beyond that kind of initial air conditioning and painting companies? What did you do beyond that?
So there's a word that we use in federal contract. It's called land and expand. And so what it says is you just land someplace first, right? And then as you are doing a good job, right, because we expect you to do a good job, then the government starts telling you more about their other needs that they have. And they start to say, hey, Simon, I love what you guys are doing, fixing the air conditioner, but we've got a water leak in that closet that has destroyed the entire closet. Is that something that you guys could give us a price on? And you said, sure, I could do that. Oh, by the way, we've got this door that needs to be replaced over here. Is that something that you guys could do since you guys are already here and you're already approved on site?
And
sure.
so these are outside what are listed on the website. These are like bespoke type of things.
Yes. Yeah. So we and the federal government for the United States, what happens is there are a list of projects. If they fall under a certain threshold, let's say $200,000, they don't have to publicly list those on any websites. They can just issue them to you, the contractor, to have them done as needed. So the government realizes that they spend so much money and so many contracts that they can't publicize everything. It's just impossible. So they said anything under this threshold, right? Let's say 200K, as long as they have bids from reputable, credible companies that they could show that they tried to get multiple bids, they can just issue the contract directly to you, Simon, and get you to do that work. And that's what we did, a lot of that work.
So
a ton of it.
So as you became more known as being reliable, suddenly your phone started ringing on these like jobs that you didn't even really have to compete for, basically.
Correct. Absolutely.
And so you started, was it then like a relationship game, not just with the federal government, but you are, obviously you need people to actually do this work. Were you just building a network of people who like, oh, you need a plumber? I know a guy. And just kind of like, what was that kind of relationship building like?
Great question, by the way. A lot of times those people are already working in those areas, right? They may not be working on the military base, but I mean, every town has a local plumber. Every town has a local air conditioner guy. Every town has a local flooring guy. I mean, these trades exist everywhere, USA. And so it's just a matter of, again, the reliable people that I was working with. I said, who do you guys use as your plumber? Who do you use to fix, who do you trust? They said, oh, call Bob. Bob is the guy. Like, Bob will not let you down. Bob's a third generation plumber, right? His name is we had a roofing guy named Bob Hilson, and he was literally third generation. His family's been in here. They own the building. They put all the roofs on all the warehouses, all of the hotels in the area. So we called up Bob and said, hey, Bob, I talked to Jim. Jim said to give you a call. We've got this project on a military base that we think that you guys might be a good fit for. No one says no to you, Simon.
So do you have a spreadsheet somewhere where if I say I have a job in Richmond, you're like, I know the guy in Richmond to do this specific job?
I used to have a spreadsheet carrying around. I mean, now, right, we don't. Our network is too large to do that, too vast. Going back to why we're talking today, now if I have a requirement, I'll just go on YouTube or go to my email list of 25,000 people and say, hey, I've got this project I need help with. Anybody know anyone? And then they'll just send me people from all over the country.
Interesting. So you're having to do less of the legwork to go find those people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so how did your company expand in terms of staffing and headcount as you were taking on more and more of these federal contracts? So by the way, this is the longest I think I've gone in this podcast without talking about media, but I promise we are getting to the media part.
That's okay. No, listen, that's okay. I want people to understand this because I think this is super important. Because the reason why, and the reason why I'm on YouTube and why I did this is because we need more good people to help the government. And I think that our government gets a bad rap. A lot of times we politicize the government, and I think it's not necessarily us in terms of the citizens' fault. I think it's the news outlets and news media's fault for making everything very politicized. So people have a negative connotation when it says federal government. But, myself and all of my friends have amassed a bunch of wealth from the government that we just see a different side than what's being shown on the news networks. So I kind of want to say that. But going back, so I went from supporting these companies to launching my own company. And when I did that, what I did, and it's funny, now that I think back at it, I almost did like a business acquisition, but I didn't realize it at the time because what I did was I first won a major contract using the skills that I had learned. And then the manufacturer of the materials I was buying, I asked him, can you find me a company that can fulfill this major contract? The contract was around $2 million. And so they said, yep, we have this company. And then I just hired all their staff.
Okay. And the staff being like, what were their roles?
So this particular contract was to stand up airplane hangars. So we were building jet hangars. And all of the work had to do with standing up the steel buildings that support the plane hangars. So all of them were steel erection guys. They were metal building guys, like the skull and crossbones tattoos. There was those kind of guys that walked on the columns. So the manufacturer referenced me with a company who had, I think they had 12 to 14 employees. And because the project was, it was probably about a 8 to 10 month project, I just hired everybody on my payroll.
Interesting. Oh, so I assumed that your staffing was mainly kind of white collar office workers and that all the construction work was outsourced, but you actually have like actual the people who are actually getting their hands dirty and doing the work. They're working directly for you now. Yeah, so I started with just the white collar people in the office, and then I transitioned. Remember I was saying when I left working with the AC guy and the painting guy, then when I launched my own business to start getting contracts directly, I hired on all of the physical workers, and I stood up my company with physical workers that did the actual work, and then I built the office team around it. And then, so like, how many like actual workers who like the construction workers did you have? Like, is it
22.
22? And were they? Did they have like a broad range of skill sets, or was it mainly those people who worked on the steel things?
No, I just when I did my construction company, it was all steel buildings.
Okay. And is that what you focused on from there forward, or did you continue doing all the other stuff as well?
No, I focus on steel buildings.
Oh, wow. Okay. So then once you had that niche, which I'm guessing is pretty big, because I'm guessing most buildings have steel in them,
Right.
that was more than enough for you to continue like growing
Yeah.
your company.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that actually took me to being the top supplier for that company in the entire country. I became number 5 guy in the country.
Number 5 for steel buildings?
For steel buildings under that brand, yeah, Seco Building Company.
Awesome. And do you still own that company today?
I do, but I no longer do contracts under that company.
What does that do? What does it do now?
Just consulting. I just consult with other companies now, primarily through that business.
Okay, so you don't really employ like the people who are actually erecting them anymore. Okay.
No, and I stopped. The last time I did that, I think, was 2020. Was the last time we did that.
So, at what point do you decide to launch? I think you launched a podcast, like an audio-only podcast first, before you got into YouTube and stuff like that. So,
opposite. I launched YouTube first for a year, and then I did audio-only podcast next year.
So, when did you decide to launch the YouTube channel, and what went into your thinking?
It's interesting. The entire time, when I started from 2007 to around 2012, 2016, 15, I was doing contracts, and like you said, we became essentially the incumbent on a lot of the facilities where we went, and a lot of people, because we were hiring people that were much older and had been in business a long time, they kept suggesting somehow that we had did something to get these contracts that were not above board. Right? They're like, how are you guys getting all these contracts? And why are we working for you and you not working for us? And right? I mean, if you imagine, I'm in my 20s when I started. And like, how's some 20 or something old kid getting contracts when I've been in business for 2 generations and we can't get those contracts? So I saw that, and then I saw people that looked like me that were minorities that just assumed that this was someone else's contract, right? It was not my contract. And so I said, I got to teach people about these programs, because clearly no one knows about the programs. And what I went to learn, Simon, was that the government does not have a budget to train people how to utilize all of the programs that exist. So it's incumbent upon you to actually go out and learn the government system in order to be able to do these things.
And so you decided.
So that itch that was always in me. Like, that was always in me, was like, I gotta. And so what allowed me to do it was I won a contract that was a 2-year contract that I did not have to do any of the work. And so I took that opportunity to start making YouTube content.
Yeah. And so I think, like, you told me that originally you were going to try like scripted videos. Was it like how-to explainer videos or something like that?
Yeah. I was trying. Yeah, I wrote down some scripts. I bought the teleprompter and all this stuff, and I just couldn't. It was too difficult to make that work. I just kind of threw that out the window, and I just started talking from the heart and just telling people kind of what I did, what I had learned, and the mistakes that I made.
So was it just like every single video you picked a different topic, like how to navigate some aspect of federal contracting, and just kind of spoke extemporaneously everything you knew on that topic? Yeah,
exactly. From, how did I get started? Where did I register? What were some of some mistakes that I made in my registration, right? Because, I mean, you're going to make those same mistakes. What were some of the things that I would do differently the next time that I register? What are some of the ways that you can get qualified to be a government contractor? What are some of the myths that are existing in this arena? A lot of that stuff still holds true today. I'm actually going back and redoing my content from 2018 now, because people are still saying some of the same things from 8 years ago when I started making content. Like, that still today holds true.
And what year did you launch the YouTube channel?
2017.
And so in that first year before you started the podcast, did these videos take off? Where people find them?
No. Very little.
Why do you think? Just because it was too
It's
early?
a niche. I think it was just a niche market.
Yeah, but I feel like some like super niche markets they can take off relatively quickly because there's kind of like an information vacuum and people Googling and searching these things can come across it. But I guess maybe it takes time to seed that in Google and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't consider myself a content creator. I consider myself a contractor, right? So my skills are in procurement. I just use YouTube as a vehicle to get my message out there, right? So I didn't come into the YouTube world with a whole game plan, a marketing strategy, how I'm going to monetize. I just really want to get the information out to people. A lot of the questions that people kept asking me all the time, I'm like, if I make this on a video, then I could send it to people. They could stop asking me this stupid question all the time. Like, I just like, look, everyone asks me the same question everywhere I go. Here's a video. Now I just send it to people and you watch the video.
So it was more kind of just a hand-to-hand combat type of thing versus something that was trying to be scaled at first.
Right, correct. Yeah, but the reason why I kept going was because I would get one or two people that would say, "Hey, man, that's a good video. I learned so much. Don't stop." At the time, I remember this. There were 2 people on YouTube in my niche talking about government contracting.
Yeah, so it was a wide open market. So how did you decide to then parlay that into or segue that into a podcast?
Because I realized that I could only speak from a standpoint of construction. And I'm like, there's so many facets of government contracts that I can't possibly educate people on how to do IT or how to sell products or how to do engineering services or, any of that stuff I didn't have any knowledge on. So I always, for me personally, I actually when I started doing this, I was watching John Lee Dumas podcast, Pat Flynn Smart, podcast. And so I saw where they interviewed people. I actually bought their course. I bought John Lee Dumas's course. And I literally, from that, I said, okay, I want to interview people in other sectors of government so that I can extract that information and expound upon it to the world. And so I just wanted to get those stories from other people in other sectors that I didn't know about.
And were you just like cold emailing them?
So the good thing about me is that because I've had businesses, I've always had teams. So I never did anything on my own. I've never edited videos. I've never created thumbnails. I've never edited podcasts. So I met someone that wanted a job, and I told her, okay, you could be my assistant that runs my podcast. I've been wanting to do a podcast for a year. I haven't been able to do it. I'm going to buy this course. You take it, and then you do it. And so I hired her and put her on my team, and then she started cold emailing people for the podcast, yes.
And how hard was it to get them on?
It was actually very easy.
Yeah, I'm sure these people don't get a lot of podcast interview requests.
I mean, the hardest part was that most of the people in my space, again, they were boomers back then, right? So, I mean, they're just like Congress. It's a reflection of Congress. So they didn't know what a podcast was.
Yeah, so you had to educate them.
That was the education part, right? So it wasn't that they said no, they didn't want to do it. They're like, okay, that sounds great. What's a podcast?
And were you, back when it was like a audio only podcast, were you able to find an audience at that point?
We did. We found an audience right out the gate.
And was it just word of mouth, or because podcast is one of those weird things where you'll go search, and if there's only one podcast on that topic, that'll be the one podcast you subscribe to.
I'm assuming that's probably the case.
So then you get into video podcasts where you're doing what we're doing now, where it's like where you start putting them on your YouTube channel. How long did it take before you did that?
About a year. So
this were in 2019, 2020?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so what happened for you at that point? Because you have 50,000 subscribers on YouTube now, which is pretty substantial especially for such a niche channel. Right. What did that growth look like?
So I grew. I think the first year I got 100 subscribers. I think the second year I was like 500, then 1,000, then 5,000, 10,000. Right, it kind of doubled. Right, so that's kind of every year it just doubled.
And you said that you've always had people working for you who do the thumbnails and stuff like that. How much were you trying to strategize versus like was it just you were just kind of outsourcing that to people in terms of like thinking about YouTube growth and everything that went into it?
I never thought about YouTube growth. I honestly just make content, just that content I thought was good content. I kind of, about year 2 of me making YouTube content, someone reached out to me to want to buy my services. At the time, the only thing that I had that I offered was, I forgot the name of the service, but you could call this number and it would charge you by the hour to talk to me. And so I had a service like that people would ask me questions, say, hey, how can we talk to you? So I put it up, is it Clarity? I put up something like that, right? Yeah, I set up one of those accounts, and then people would pay to talk to me. And then that got very tiring. At like, even at like $200 an hour, I mean, people would talk forever. Like you don't know your value. So they're like, somebody say, you're like, man, I did 10 hours this week. I'm exhausted. So I bumped it up to $500 an hour. And it still kind of got exhausting,
And it was just people just being like, they just wanted to pick your brain on government procurement and stuff like that.
Right.
And that was all through people coming in through like the podcast.
That's it. Podcast and YouTube.
What do you value more as in terms of like the value that it brings to you, the YouTube channel or the audio listeners to the podcast?
I think that the YouTube channel gives me the credibility and authority, but the podcasts are more higher value.
So at what point did you start thinking about how do I start monetizing the podcast and YouTube channel directly? Like you said that you started doing a little bit of this consulting, but when did you start like really kind of plotting, like how do I kind of turn this into a media company of some sort?
Year two. Someone that listened to my content, maybe it might have been year 3. Yeah, it had to be year 3, I would say. Year 2, I met someone from one of my subscribers on YouTube said, hey, you have a business here. And I said, okay. They go, like, let me spell it out for you. And so I remember riding in the car with my assistant, and I took a call from this random subscriber. And and by the way, I still have this to this day, Simon. I'm out of town, otherwise I would show it to you. She literally spelled out, mapped out an entire strategy for how to monetize what I was doing. And she says, okay, I want you to draw on a piece of paper a big round circle. And then I want you to draw concentric circles. And then as it gets smaller, right, you're in the middle. And so the further out they are, the less they pay. The further in they are, the more they pay. And so she started like mapping this whole thing out for me, and I drew it on paper. And she says, so this is what you should do. You start a course, you start a community, low dollar items. And then as people want your services, there's a higher ticket items. And so it was a subscriber from YouTube that's basically told me what a plan. And then when I started to talk about it, people said, yeah, I would pay for a course because at that point now, Simon, I've got a couple hundred videos online, right? So remember, I'm making content every day because I didn't have to work. So I spent the entire year, 2017, making content. Like I didn't do anything else. I just make content. So now I have 150, 200 videos online. And people say, hey, that's a lot of content to watch. If you organize it, I'll buy the course of organized content. Doesn't have to be different, just organized so I don't have to watch 200 videos.
And so you put that into what, like a video course or something like that?
Yeah.
And this wasn't a live cohort course. This is just something you can purchase one and done. What platform did you sell it on?
Thinkific.
And how much did you charge for it?
Before I did a course, I did a webinar. And I did a webinar about all the different small business programs, and that was $97, my first item I sold.
And then you sold the on-demand course for $97.
I sold the on-demand webinar for $97, and then I did a course, and then the course was, I think, $197.
$197. And how did you promote the course?
Through my YouTube channel.
Just said, hey, I talk about this, but if you want to take a course, like, was it something like in the beginning or the end of the video? Like, how did you position it?
It was more like, hey, you know, I really talk from. So everything that I did, I talked from the comments in YouTube. So literally, I start like even when I made videos, the titles were based on the YouTube comments
that people were leaving.
Yeah. So someone would say, "Hey, Eric, can you make a video about does the government buy what I sell?" And I would say, "Okay, here's a video. Does the government buy what I sell?" And so the course was the same thing. It's like, "Hey, I've been getting a lot of comments about people wanting me to organize my content in a structure so that they could just skip through the process." And so I did that, and here's a course that I came out with that you can now purchase. Here's the link.
So it was just like one promotional video. It's not like you were plugging it in every single video or anything like that?
No, I never. I no. In fact, I had. So what I did do right was year 2, I started collecting emails. So I did a free course where I started collecting emails, and so then I had a small email list that I could send it to.
Yeah. So you did the courses first. What did you do after that?
The free course, and then I started. Well, the very first thing that I did, even before that, was I accidentally picked up a consulting client.
Yeah, like a monthly retainer kind of consulting client.
A big retainer.
And that's just like what, phone calls and stuff like that, or?
So all they wanted me to do, in the beginning they wanted me to train their staff on how to do federal procurement. Then that didn't work out, so they said, "Hey, can you just coach our staff? Like you just coach them on what to do, and then check to make sure they're doing it right." I said, "Okay," and so till this day, I still work with that client.
Yeah, and did you build that into an entire consulting business?
At the time, no, because I really tried. It sounds silly. I really tried to discourage them from actually hiring me. I said, "Listen, I have a bunch of YouTube videos. Just watch YouTube." And so the guy goes, "Listen, I have more money than time. I don't have time to watch a bunch of YouTube videos. I want to pay you not for your time. I want to pay you to have access." So, and that was like a game changer for me because I never thought about that. And successful people pay just to have access to you so that you respond to them or pick up their phone when they call you. They didn't need me to be clocking in every day for 10 hours a week. He was like, "I just wanted to have you so that when someone from my team has a question, you don't put me on the back burner."
So you got this consulting client, you're selling the course. Then what happened after that? Like, I know you eventually got into events. Was that the next thing?
No. So I started selling courses for the next 3 years.
That was your main business the next 3 years?
That was my main business, yeah. So I literally, because I only had one consulting client, and then I started selling courses, and then it went up to $997, and then $997 a year, and then we got up to like $2,000, and then we did like a lifetime at $5K package. So I mean, the courses really just became our main source of revenue.
So you pay $5,000 and you get what? Access to all the
Lifetime.
courses you put in?
You get all the courses and everything, and anything else I come up with in the future. So any other new programs that I release, you get access to that as well.
So you didn't just do one course, you were regularly like producing courses and stuff like that?
Yeah, I started regularly producing them. Yeah, I got really good at it. I mean, it's a lot of work to do government contracts. So I mean, when I first started, right, I made a course that covered like these high level topics. Then I got more granular, and then I got into specifics and details. And then, again, as people ask me questions, I would talk about then there were specific things. Like, I'm in IT, what do I do for IT? I'm in construction, what do I do for construction? So then I start going to different like swim lanes and getting to the specific of certain niches.
And did you launch any kind of like online community or anything like that?
I did.
Yeah. How did that, like, was that only for like paid subscribers?
So I tried a couple times launching online communities. The one that I have today, most recent, we launched it because, to your point, I had a couple Facebook communities, and I really don't like Facebook because it's just a very big distraction. So when you're on Facebook, the goal is to keep you on Facebook, and then you're looking at dogs and cats and wedding pictures, and so I did that for the first couple of years. I had several Facebook communities, and then 3 years ago, I launched my own community on Mighty Networks platform, where it was like kind of like an onboarding for people who were interested in taking the next step with us. So it's like after you go through my free course, you now come into our it's called Federal Help Center. You now come into our community where, by the way, you'll get to see all the paid students, Simon. So it's not me anymore saying it. You get to be in a room with people who've paid us money and who've gotten results, and you'll get to meet some of the same people who are giving us video testimonials on YouTube.
And is it like kind of like Slack or kind of like Facebook groups where is it like a live feed of discussion, or is it more like Facebook groups? Or
No, it's live feed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's live feed.
And so like how many people are in there at any given time?
I mean, right now we have close to 5,000 members. I think active we have. I haven't looked at the data. Probably 200 to 400 a day active any given day.
And they're just going on there and asking questions or just shooting.
They're talking
shit?
to each other, engaging with each other. We've took all of our course content and put it in there now. So it now houses all of our training content, our on-demand content. We are doing webinars. Now I've expanded. I've got coaches because I've been doing podcasting now since 2018. I've got some of my podcast guests that come in there and teach lessons. So we're doing every single day. We're doing a couple like trainings inside of that community.
And that's a free, like the community is completely free, or there's like a paid tier?
No, it's a free entry, but there's different tiers.
So if you're a free entry, what do you get access to?
If you're free entry, you'll get access to a free course. You'll get access to some of the live webinar events that we have, and then some of the you get a chance to see some upcoming events that you could participate in, like that maybe in person or in real life.
Can you participate in the chat?
Yeah, you can have your own chats. Yeah, but again, your chats with all the other free members, and then. But, again, the different tiers, they talk to each other, right? So if you're at the highest tier, you get to talk with the people at the highest tier. So you're kind of segregated based on tiers. And
then how did you get into events?
It's interesting. As I was traveling, I've got this big YouTube presence. I've got a big LinkedIn presence now. And, when you look at it, I'm one of the top people in procurement worldwide, right? We look at the Favicon ratings for social factors, but I still could not speak at events. I was not invited.
Really?
And I go, I'm like, I don't understand. I have all these people that follow me, and listen, if I go to any government contracting event, I can't walk 1 foot without somebody stopping me and thanking me for the content. And I'm like, but they don't invite me to speak. And people say, you're not speaking? And I'm like, no. I don't get invited to speak. So what I learned was a lot of these events is a pay-to-play system. So they're really not trying to help small businesses. This is their business, is events business, and they hire people that want to sponsor and get in front of these customers and get these lead lists. And so you've got a lot of money, you could basically get on the main stage. And so I found myself, and by the way, I publicly stated this on LinkedIn before, right? I've got like 20,000 followers on LinkedIn. And I said, it's a shame that all of you guys follow me and everybody claims to love me, but I can't get invited to speak at any government contracting event in the country. And by the way, I've spoken for the SBA. I've spoken at SBA virtual events during COVID. I've spoken at summits and conferences for government, but not for private sector events, right? When the government's hosting the event, then they want people like me. But when the private sector is hosting a government contract event, which is 99% of them, that is where I was left on the outside. So, but it wasn't just me. It was other people that I felt like were not getting a fair shake. And to be honest, Simon, I felt like it was mostly minority people. And so I said, okay, I've personally interviewed a couple hundred very successful, very wealthy minorities that I think would make great to be on stage, showcasing to other people that were disenfranchised what's possible. That's it. And so I decided to do it myself, and that's what I did.
And what year? Where did you host it, and what year was that?
The first year I did my first event was 2023. That was in Miami, and I hosted it at the. Oh my gosh, what's this hotel on the water in Miami? The second one was at the Fontainebleau. The first one was at, I I can't remember. Some fancy hotel on the water in Miami. I have to look it up.
And
But
and was it like a traditional conference, like 2 or 3 days type of thing?
so it was just one day because it's my first time out the gate. So it was a 1 day event, and then but it was a traditional conference where we had exhibitors and booths and different breakout sessions, things like that.
And so you did you get like sponsors and stuff like that?
Oh yeah.
So who sponsors a government contracting event?
There's a lot of third parties that want to sell to small businesses. So you have software companies. They will sponsor the event. You have people that provide accounting services, legal services. They sponsor those kind of events. So Intercontinental is at the Intercontinental Hotel. Miami.
Yeah. So you're getting these sponsors, and then you're also selling tickets.
Yeah, I did. Yes.
Yeah. So it's 1 day to start with. Have you expanded it to
So the
multiple
second
days?
time I made it, the second time we made it a day and a half. Well, we made it really 2 days. Call it. Yeah.
So what does your company look like now? Because it sounds like you no longer work directly on like government contracts themselves.
Right.
Like, is it one company, like, or do you have separate companies that do different things, or what's kind of the structure of your company?
So
now?
we did separate it out for different things. We've brought it back under one umbrella today, because at one point we did try and do a coaching business. I did that for 2 years. I took one of my coaches who was very successful, and I put her in charge of that business to run and do a whole consulting agency. And it did well in the beginning when I was driving the sales, but when I left from driving sales, they weren't able to onboard any new clients. So what we did was we basically put that back under my umbrella, under my purview, and they start picking up again. But when we also tried. I just want to talk about some of the mistakes or failures. We also tried at some point to do a marketing agency where we help do marketing for government contracting companies, which again did. When I started it and I brought in the first couple of clients, we were doing well, but then I didn't have anyone leading it that could continue to bring on clients. They really just maintained the ones that I brought in there. So again, we put all that back in house now, and so now everything is under one umbrella.
So the business now does it does events, it does the paid courses, it still does the coaching, or did you?
And we do coaching. Yep.
Still does the coaching, and you do still do the marketing for companies.
So no. Now what we do is we have a strategic partnership package that includes marketing as a part of sponsoring content that we put out. So we have companies now that pay us to run ads on our podcast, to run ads on our YouTube video, and also to do co-branded content promotion with them.
And are there any other business models we haven't touched on that you guys do?
No.
So how are you staffed now? How big is your staff? And
so we were at 24 people. I think now we're at 18. But a lot of that is our marketing team that creates the content. And then we've got our coaches that service the clients. And then, we've got operations people.
So when you're looking ahead, like 3 years from now, what would you like to be doing that you're not currently doing?
So I'm actually going to go back into contracting.
Why did you get out in the first place?
It was hard to do both. Part of the story I was taken advantage of in the commercial market, which is part of my burning fire that lit under me to start putting content so I could build an army of small businesses. I felt like that mission's been accomplished, Simon. So now I'm going to go back into contracting. But let me tell you the difference. I have 50,000 subscribers, 20,000 people on LinkedIn. I'm number one in procurement in the country. Okay, I can call anyone, talk to anyone, get to anyone. I could go into the White House. I could walk I'm saying this because when you do government contracting, guess who follows me? people at the FBI, the CIA, Secret Service, those people follow me. The people that are watching my content, in fact, I'm going to show you something online. If we could share our screen.
I don't think you could. I don't know if you could do it with
okay.
Podcast, yeah.
Well, okay. So if I were to show you my LinkedIn profile and you look at the content I post, 30% of my viewership is Washington, D.C. area. What's there?
The federal government, yeah.
The federal government. All the bodies, all branches, all bodies, from energy to human services, every single, that's 30% of my, and again, on LinkedIn, I get about 40,000 impressions every 7 days. So, now, as I'm going back as a contractor, it's almost like I'm like a political appointee in a sense, Simon, that when I go back in my contracting business, in fact, I just got off a call today with someone asking me, hey, we want to meet with some people that are talking to the heads of the tops of the administrations. They're trying to figure out what can we do. I now have a lot more power than I had before I started this. So before I was like nickel and diming these things. Today, when I go back into contracting, I can go after multi-million-dollar contracts at the highest levels because I have the relationships, I have the trust factor, I have credibility, I have authority. I've been giving so much to this community for 7 years that now people trust me and they see my name on something and they know that I'm going to deliver, I'm going to fulfill. You understand? Like, that's the biggest concern that the government has is people failing. Because if you fail on your mission, you embarrass them and you make them look bad. And that's the worst thing that you can do to somebody's reputation.
So what you're saying is you're going to be constructing the White House ballroom.
I say that I'm going to be, no, even better. I'm going to be working with Palantir and SpaceX and sending satellites into space somewhere.
Do you feel like how are you going to be able to juggle the media company and that?
I'm going to stop the media company.
Oh, really? So you're going to stop doing the podcast?
I'm going to stop cold. Yeah.
Why? Like, don't you feel like that's you not have like fun doing it, or like?
Oh, I'm having a lot of fun.
Like you're saying that gives you the access that like allows you the credibility that allows you to make these.
I'm going to do it differently. So meaning that I'm going to continue to make media, but I'm not going to monetize it. Meaning, so I'm just going to be out putting content and sharing what I'm doing so that I can continue touching the people, like you said. But it's not going to be a company or a business to where I'm trying to monetize it or feel obligated to fulfill somebody's order, because the things that we're chasing now are going to be hundreds of millions of dollars and potentially billions of dollars in opportunities. So, I mean, that's going to trump anything this media company would ever possibly do.
Interesting. So the media company, it's just not great business model compared to the business model of the other stuff, and you can use the media to get you that other stuff that's more lucrative, basically.
The wealthiest black people in America do government contracts.
And why?
I mean, yeah. we're talking about Alex Karp for Palantir is worth $14 billion. He started when I started, but he just started doing, do you know how Palantir started, Simon?
I mean, I just know Peter Thiel was heavily involved, but or at least as an investor. I don't know if he is.
He's a co-founder. Yeah. However, you know that technology was initially funded by the CIA, so the government funded Palantir to make these people billionaires. I mean, they funded them. It's kind of like we funded COVID research, and then they turned around and sold it back to us at a premium. Like, the government funded Palantir. It came out of the CIA. It came out of a group called Incutel, which is the CIA's technology group that funds technologies that the CIA wants to have. So they funded Palantir, and now, fast forward, right? These people are the wealthiest people in our country. But by the way, this is available to all of us. This opportunity exists for all of us. So, but I will say again, Peter Thiel was already a wealthy guy, successful before even doing any of this, right? He started Facebook. He was an initial investor in Facebook and all these things. So I did not have that opportunity, but I feel like I have it today with my platform. So I can now go back in with the platforms that I have built and the connections, relationships, and go back in a major way, instead of at the bottom, kind of where I started from. So,
like, you're no longer going to be monetizing the media channel, but are you going to be heading the procurement stuff, or are you going to hire someone who can, like, run that side of the business?
No, we're going to hire an entire procurement team. We already have people that want to come work for us because of the work that we've done. I mean, we literally have people that want to leave where they're working now to come and support our mission because of what we've done and given to the community.
That's awesome. Okay, Eric, those are all the questions I have for you. Where can people find you online?
Eric Coffie everywhere, LinkedIn, Instagram. But if you want to message me, probably the best way is through LinkedIn or DM me on Instagram. eCoffie, it's Coffie. That's the important distinction.
Great. Well, this is a lot of fun. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Simon. I appreciate the time.